and this is Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Back in March, it looked as if there was a great conspiracy being created within the Obama administration. As conspiracies go, this conspiracy would have to actually have a plan to begin what can be seen as a betrayal of the security of Eastern Europe. See, 25 years ago, we were watching the wall come down in Berlin. And now here we are with a greater conspiracy. So the war hawks see it as a victory, and the rest of the world see this conspiracy as being as a way to create a lack of security in the world. See, the Obama administration, for its part, has started a relentless campaign of propaganda, also condemnations, denunciations against Russia and its leader, Vladimir Putin. Many people in America today have now joined the Russia Haters Club, which has ignited the debate over whether or not the Cold War has returned. What's really sad is during the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev declared the world is on the verge of a second Cold War, and the United States is to be blamed for it. Gorbachev has now said the United States and the West yielded to triumphalism after the Soviet Union's dictator-filled bloc of satellite governments rapidly collapsed in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Gorbachev suggested that the United States should not have attempted to lead the world in the power vacuum caused by the implosion of the Soviet Union. He also condemned the United States and its Western allies for failing to settle conflicts in the Middle East, Yugoslavia, and more recently, Ukraine. Gorbachev has also mellowed out a bit when it comes to his criticism of Vladimir Putin. Despite strongly criticizing the Russian president in the past for his dreams of annexing eastern Ukraine, Gorbachev implored Western leaders on Saturday to consider carefully what Putin really wants. In fact, as the United States has been caught up in its elections, Ebola scares, and ISIS obsession, the rest of the world is beginning to see that Putin, while levying harsh criticism against Barack Obama, sincerely wants to find a way to lower tensions and ultimately build a new basis for partnership. In other words, our Russian leader now wants to engage with talks with President Obama. President Obama, what does he say? Nah, he disagrees with everything, backs off, doesn't want to engage the leader, and it looks as if the trends are not looking good for the United States. Now, when we talk about trends, we have to talk about the TrendsJournal. It's the only journal out there that illustrates what's happening. It's actually an oracle that I use every once in a while, and the man behind it is Gerald Celente, and we're so glad to have him on the program tonight. Gerald Celente, welcome to Ground Zero.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me on, Clyde.
So you hear now, here we are 25 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and it's embarrassing because, I mean, you have Angela Merkel saying anything can happen, hope is there, but where is the hope? Where is the change? Where is all of this that we were all, those who lived through the bringing down of the Berlin Wall and the idea of hope, the idea that communism has finally died, that now we can live in harmony with one another, and here we are 25 years later at odds with each other again. This is embarrassing, and it just shows the lack of leadership, doesn't it?
Well, it's more than embarrassing. It's it's threatening. What they're in cold. By the way, we wrote in the TrendsJournal. It had to be back 3 years ago when things were heating up again in the Middle East in 2011, actually, with Syria, and they were taking out Gaddafi. The talk heating up then. We saw what we call the Cold War II, because Russia, of course, had alliances, particularly does still, with Syria. Mm-hmm. And the Cold War II now has been heating up for a while. I say threatening because, these people, they're this is above their heads, in the sense that you have a military that can't win a war since World War II. Let's call it what it is. Enough for this charade that, oh yeah, now we got a plan and a strategy. They lost in Korea. They lost Vietnam. Well, we could have won Vietnam if you only gave us more freedom to kill. We only killed 3 million of Vietnamese over there and poisoned the joint with Agent Orange. If you gave us another, maybe 5 years, we could have won. Well, that's their excuse. We didn't give them enough firepower. And, of course, they lost in Iraq, and now we're back there again after the commander-in-chief He came up with a phony line, we got to save them Christians on the mountain. This is a humanitarian mission going back several months ago. And now, of course, we have advisors in Iraq. Well, they're not advisors, they're troops. That's the same kind of cheap lingo they used back in Vietnam, including Kennedy using it. And then when they lost Afghanistan, the longest war in American history with no end in sight. And then I forgot, Libya, that humanitarian mission. Yeah, we got to save those people against Gaddafi. You know, because if he stays there, there'll be a humanitarian mission, and we got to stop it. So we'll bomb the place, destabilize it, and turn it into a free-for-all so it could destabilize more of the area around it. So now they're playing with Russia. Does anybody get it in their head? Napoleon couldn't defeat the Russians. Hitler launched the largest military offensive in history, and he couldn't defeat the Russians. Oh, Obama, Cameron, and Hollande are going to beat him? What, after they play golf and cricket? You know, what is this? This is a bad joke. You have the same imbeciles with different names that got us into World War I, a totally avoidable war, that are now bringing the world onto the edges, the brink of World War III. It's in front of, and the lies just keep pumping out there, and the disgusting media in this country keeps selling them. Oh, I'm sure, Clyde, you've seen them, the 32 tanks, 17 Howitzers, and 18, tanks and sub-tanks and over-tanks going over the border last week.
Yeah.
Kev reported it, but they didn't show one photo.
No, they did not. I mean, we keep hearing all these things coming out of Europe, but it's mostly out of Western Europe. In Western Europe, the European Union has it in for Russia. Vladimir Putin, in his speech at Sochi, said that he doesn't want to be a part of the backroom deals. He doesn't want to be a part of their new world order. I know that he's involved with BRICS, which is another attempt at a new world order. So it's his new world order against our new world order, fighting it out to the bitter end and calling upon all of his allies to do so. And what allies are going to stick by us as we're creating a breach of security in the United States because of our own gains, not because we care about others. It's because we want our own hegemony. This is what is happening. And you try to point it out to people, and people say, oh, give Obama a break. No, I'm not going to. Look where we are now, 25 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And where are we? We're back to fighting Russia again. It doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense. And again, the stupidity, starting this whole sanctions game against Russia. Sanctions are an act of war. It's putting you out of business. It happened in World War II. They don't talk about that either with Japan. Japan was undercutting the markets, just like they're doing again now with devaluing the yen to 7-year lows. It's against it. It's depreciated some 50% against the Chinese yuan and the Korean won. But going back to World War II, what did the United States do? They started putting sanctions on Japan. They cut them off from oil, from rubber, from natural resources.
Right.
They're doing the same thing now with Russia. And who are they hurting? They're hurting not only the Russians, they're hurting the Europeans who are still in a recession. So it's madness. And again, the lies, at least, like you said, you tell people, I stopped talking to people. I don't care. One guy, they'll start talking to me. I say, look, you know how to fix automobiles. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how to fix automobiles. You're over your head. I don't even want to go into the details with you. So I just cut it off. Because here is the detail. The detail is that the United States broke the agreement set by Gorbachev and Reagan. And that was that the Soviet Union would return Eastern Germany to Germany, and NATO would not expand any longer. They were stopping where they were at. And then Slick Willie, the Slimer Clinton, the biggest sellout this country's had probably since Woodrow Wilson, who sold us out to the Fed and got us into World War I. The guy that gave us NAFTA, GMO foods, deregulated the communications industry, killed the Glass-Steagall Act, and has set up the whole Great Recession. I could go on with him. He's the one that started expanding NATO. And then little Georgie Bush over there, the number 2, he started expanding NATO. They've all gone back on the agreement. Nobody ever talks about this. This is the hegemony started by those neocons, those madmen in power and mad women in power that are pushing the world to the brink where we're going to look at, if it's not stopped, World War III.
I would agree. Gerald Celente with us tonight on Ground Zero. Of course, he is the publisher of TrendsJournal. Tonight on Ground Zero, fired up just like I am. 25 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the creep, the NATO creep, the European Union creep, all towards Russia. Vladimir Putin spoke and said, I'm tired of the backroom deals. I'm tired of dealing with the EU. I'm tired of having Russian interests being stepped on by people who've gone back on their word. And that's exactly what's going on. 25 years after the agreement, the Berlin Wall comes down, and what do? We turn on them. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
You're listening to Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on FM News 101.
Everyone is in on the secrets, and big things are being planned. Call Clyde Lewis now. Ground Zero.
Gerald Celente is my guest tonight on Ground Zero, the publisher of the TrendsJournal. Tonight, we're both fired up about the 25-year lack of progress after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's embarrassing, and not only that, but it's deadly to think that after 25 years, all the hope and all we felt for the meaning of what the future would hold is now being dashed, all because of the fact that we have a leader that wants to engage our other leaders like Barack Obama and elsewhere, but we have the neocons trying to destabilize countries. You know, I think the biggest joke of all is how our stance with Ukraine, Gerald, has become this propaganda, this super propaganda push when we forget about Victoria Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt and how they both were in cahoots with each other trying to destabilize Ukraine. And no one remembers this. They all think it's like, oh, well, that was just, I don't know what they think, but it was right there on the telephone, both of them talking about how they were going to move in, to stabilize the country, and then have somebody like Biden come in and give a big attaboy and say, okay, we're going to go fight now, guys. I mean, do you remember that?
Of course I do, but you could go back even earlier than that. Oh, by the way, 2 things. You mentioned Sochi before. When we wrote this in the TrendsJournal, as it was happening, that the negative propaganda coming out from the States prior to the Sochi Olympics was like something I've never seen in my life. People probably forgot this, but don't get on a plane going to Sochi. We got intelligence from our unintelligent intelligence sources saying that they may have toothpaste bombs blowing up. Remember the toothpaste bombs?
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
They freak people. Yeah. Remember that yellow water? And they're killing all those stray dogs over there in Sochi. They set this up. By the time the Sochi Olympics began, Americans' perceptions of Russia was at a 1994 low. That's how much negative publicity they pushed out against the Olympics. Going back to what you said about Victoria Nuland, you could go back even further than that phone call. Anybody could go to YouTube and you could watch it. December 13th, or December 12th or 13th, 2013, this past December. Put in Victoria Nuland, Washington Press Club. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, our assistant